so awesome. So awesome. It's so much fun. I'm still not understanding why it's not letting me screen share.
Well, we can capture it later, I guess.
We can.
But
You're not understanding why what?
we're trying to allow people who aren't present
Right.
to access it, but we were trying to screen share so that they're not seeing us, they're seeing what's actually on our
You need to
screen.
click the green.
It's not working,
It's not
is
working.
the problem.
Yeah, see, it's like, oh, look, click. No click. No clicky click.
So- oh. Well,
Okay, well, I guess we're just gonna make this work.
okay. I want to pull up Canvas.
Mm-hmm. So we may just have to do a different recording.
That's what I was thinking.
But that's okay.
if somebody's participating live, they.
Yep. All right,
See.
it's all you, Shanae.
Okay.
It's all you.
Okay. So, thank you for joining us today.
I'm so excited.
We felt like this was a good time to talk about ending our courses well and setting ourselves up for success when the course is taught again. Because we get calls at the beginning of every semester, I can't access this thing, or other departments. There are new faculty. Tracy probably experienced that, where they're like, I want to put this person in a 2014 course, and that really isn't the best way to retroactively do that. So we want to try to learn and practice the best way to keep up to date and end our courses well, so that we can start the next time well. So I think everyone is familiar with a master. So the masters are in Canvas. They're manually created and they don't exist within term dates, which means some people have experienced, if you go into a course you taught in a past term, and you can't add somebody. And so then you have to call us, and then we have to adjust dates and then add people. And it can be kind of cumbersome to do that. So that's part of the reason we recommend masters. It's also helpful when new people come on board, then they can at least see what has been done, whether or not that's how they want to do it. It's easy to access. And then it doesn't roll out of Canvas, because eventually some of these courses will kind of hibernate, for lack of a better term. And it doesn't mean the content is lost. It will just be harder to retrieve that information. So trying to keep it present and current is our goal. So if you don't have a master, your org admin should have the ability to create, or they do have the ability to create a master. If you don't have an org admin, that's something that is difficult for that person to do, you can just let us know. Like Julie talked about having a master created for a course. Let us know what you want it to be called. It will have master, just so we are aware that this is a manually created course, and the master was the creation purpose. But then it can be named whatever makes the most sense to you. So at the end of your semester, you may have originally copied your course from your master. So you may have copied it from a past course, but we know that changes happen. You realize, oh, I didn't expect that result. And so you start shifting things within your live course. So it's different than either a past time you taught it or the master that you pulled it from. And it can be really hard to keep track of what those changes are. So what we will do, I'm using my sandbox, but pretend that it is a master. So at the end of your course, once you have concluded, or you could even do it if the course hasn't fully concluded, but you've made all of your changes from that term, you're going to go into the master. because we want to copy that content into the master. So the first thing you do, triple check that you are in your master, because we are going to do something that is kind of scary, and that is we are going to reset the master. The reason we are going to reset the master is if there is already content in there and I copy other content in there, it's not going to rewrite the current content, it's going to add. So we've seen a number of masters and inevitably live courses that have 8 iterations of a page or 15 of the same assignment when the professor just needed 1. So this is a key piece to make sure that your master is prepared to be to get new information. So click on settings on the lower left side of your course navigation, and then we have all of these buttons on the right, and you'll see toward the bottom there is the reset course content button. When you click it, it is going to warn you, and it's going to say, are you sure? So that is why we say, go ahead and check, make sure, yes, this is my master, this is not my live course, because we don't want to have to deal with that.
Please.
But I'm certain this is my master. This is the one I'm wanting to reset, and I will go ahead and reset the course content.
So, so just to piggyback off what Sinead said, the reason why she said to triple check is because once you reset that, it's gone. There is no undelete for that. For example, like there is in other instances, for certain cases, once that's done, that is irreversible. So that content is gone. Anything that was in there now no longer exists. It's basically like setting a fire to something. What once was there is no longer there.
But you really do want to do that. Otherwise,
Yes.
It's a very manual process to go and delete all of those entries. And we can go ahead and see that there are no longer assignments in this course. There are no discussions, but it will keep the people. So you can still see I have Jesse in e-learning and Tyler as users, so that remains, but my course content has been stripped out. Then, as you are probably aware, you've probably copied content from past terms or masters. That's what we're going to do with this master. So we will go to settings. And import content into this course. This will look the exact same as when you're copying from course to course or master to course, but obviously the direction is different. Let's see. We're going to take one of Jesse's classes. I have a lot more on my list. So I want to copy over this math course that finished
A few weeks ago, like 6 weeks ago.
in October.
Yep,
Yes.
no problem.
So a couple points about the content. We highly recommend that you choose all content. That is going to keep all of your settings, how you set it up, your assignment groups. It's going to keep all of that information intact. It's okay to do select specific content, but then you need to double and triple check that it came over exactly how you wanted it. It does often mess up.
Well,
Yeah.
And the problem, the reason why it does that is because when you do that initial download or initial import, it builds the structure, right? It takes all of that. And then as you add specific content, it doesn't know necessarily where that specific content lives because you built it in a specific structure. It doesn't see that structure because it's just looking for that specific piece. So it brings it in and it says, okay, we're just going to stick it here. and we're gonna call everything imported because that's really what it
Yeah,
is.
that's what you lose is the assignment groups.
Well, yeah,
Mhm.
right.
And that's one of the biggest things. And then if you're also importing just a piece of a module, it can be kind of
Yes, ma'am.
tricky to make sure that you get that into the right, or you have to go manually make sure that's in the right spot. And so we will go ahead and import this content.
I noticed that there was a checkbox for adjusting the dates.
Mhm. Mhm.
Is that functional?
It works.
Okay.
It works. It's very specific though.
Yes.
And so sometimes it's a lot more work to use that. Because masters don't have dates, so you would need to go put in dates on that, and your date time frame would need to match exactly the number of weeks that is listed on the next course. And we have 3 weeks of padding on either side within the live course, so it is possible, but sometimes it ends up causing more grief than being helpful. So
So it can be working with you, just bringing all your dates back.
that's what I lean toward. If we can have other conversations to talk about how to frame it so it should work properly. And we're happy to talk about what that looks like. But for the most part, I would say just copy it over as is.
Mhm.
So you can see I have a new homepage. I have all of this content from when this course was just taught. It has all of those changes. And then if you want to make additional changes, so while I was teaching it, I realized, I didn't order them well, but you can't necessarily go back and reorder how you taught it because it's too late. So this is why we encourage at the end of the semester, this is the time you want to say, oh, right, okay, I didn't really like having the devotion at the beginning of that week. I really want to move it to the end because I felt like whatever else we talked about in class, this would have worked better with the flow. And so in the master, I'm making the changes that I wish or I learned from the time I just taught it. And usually it's freshest when we're just finishing the course, instead of if I teach this next fall, realize again in the middle of week 2, I forgot. I didn't like how that worked last time. But this is another time I would say, again, make sure that you were in the course that you were in the master when you're manipulating, because you don't want to change the integrity of the course that was taught. So this is, so we recommend doing this at the end of the semester. This obviously does not mean that you aren't going to make changes before you start the next time, but this is going to set you up in the best situation for you to start, and hopefully you have fewer changes and revisions that you want to make. One thing that Jesse's going to go over further is also sometimes links break, sometimes they change. And so Canvas does have the link validator. So we encourage you to try that. I will show you. That is also within the settings.
Is this in your checklist?
It is. And so on our right-hand list of all of the options at the bottom, it says validate links in content. And so it's
Wow.
start link validation. This is in the last year, it's a newer feature. And it will bring back anything that is broken or is redirected. So it will bring back if you possibly, if you have a URL to the old form of how NNU web pages went. So like the library, it used to be nnu.edu/library, and now the new URL structure is library.nnu.edu.
Right.
And so that link may ultimately get the student there, but it's not, it has to be redirected. And so it will come back with a note that says, check this link. Sometimes it's not as specific as we would like, but it will send you to pages that need to be checked. It's taking a little bit.
Were there a lot
And-
of Khan Academy videos in there?
Yes, so that's why, because it's gonna go through, and again, it does a really good job of like sniffing out all of that information, right? It really does it doesn't just go like, oh, it does work, oh, it doesn't work. It really does look deeply into, is this a valid link?
And you'll see here, so some links flagged as unresponsible are inaccessible from Canvas, but if a live student is in there, it could work.
Right.
So that might be something you would see if there's a third party tool that students sign in.
Why would something be inaccessible to their servers?
So for example, if it was, Turnitin comes to mind, because Turnitin means single sign-on and it's specific to a user, right? So a link validator, if you have something in there that's a Turnitin assignment, but it's linked to Turnitin, it may look at that link and say, oh, this one's broken, right? Or it's unresponsive. Because it's trying to it's looking at it just from a legitimacy standpoint, it's just trying to validate it. When you as a user are going to go, it's going to work perfectly. So instances like that, like with your third-party tools that are specific, your Cengage, your McGraw-Hill things that are user-specific, if you put a link to that in your course materials, it may not register that as a valid link. However, when you sign in or your students sign in, it works perfectly. Those instances.
So those could pop up and you would just know I know I set it up correctly. And your students will also let you know if it doesn't work.
Yes.
But you've also probably experienced that if you've used the student view and you've tried to go into a Turnitin assignment and it errors out, it's because it's trying, Turnitin is like, you're not a legitimate allowed person.
That's exactly right.
Test student is not a person. So Jesse's going to continue because you're going to talk about link validator at the end anyway. And he's going to walk through that checklist.
So the nice thing too is as we move, you can leave this run, right? And it will run in the background and it will go through your whole course and you can come back at a later time and check it and see what it's doing, right? What it looks like, what it's processed. Because again, it depends on your page, right? It depends on your content. It depends on all of the really great fun features that you may have in your course, how long that's going to take. So it's not necessarily, it can be a really simple process and very quick. It could be like, 20 or 30 minutes. There's no way to tell. Yes, ma'am.
I did it on a course that isn't published yet,
Oh, perfect. There it is.
and I got tons of stuff. Is that because it just isn't published? Or
No,
is there
so-
really that much wrong with this thing?
So again, here, what kind of, since we're in Link
ahead.
Validator,
Yeah.
we'll walk through this. So again, as you can see here, right, so it says 14 basically unresponsive links that are found. And what that means is that when I have things that are in here, there are links that either when they went to them, it didn't kick anything back to them that loaded a page or was a redirect to them or had something that gave them some sort of responsive content. Does that
Right.
make sense? So the Khan Academy links, right? They're linking out to Khan Academy. It's a link to a video. So it's one of those things where there's not dynamic, there's nothing in it that's going to trigger a response that says, I've loaded a page. It's an inactive video. You have to physically do something to that video in order for it to be responsive.
So how do you interpret this?
So
It's great. Good.
I was just going to point out something that we talked about, was this right here. This URL is http://nnu.edu/academic/registrar. That is the old structure for our web pages. So if a student did click on that link, it could redirect them back to registrar.nnu.edu. But Canvas is saying, hey, that's not the direct link. And me knowing that, oh,
This
since
is
the
different.
time that, yeah, in the past couple years, we've updated the website and registrar.nnu.edu is the appropriate link. And really, if you just go to those pages, you can click on the blue.
Yep.
You go to those pages and click some of those links. That can also be helpful. Just to say, okay, this really is doing what I think it should be doing.
Okay, this is a master, but a lot of the there's 58 links in my
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And so a lot of these links say courses /number / does that mean it came over, it's been imported too many times from another?
It
course?
does mean it's associating to another
Another
Canvas
Yes.
Is there a quick way to clean those up?
Quick? No.
Or,
Right.
is it important to clean those up so that they don't do the telephone name and get,
Mm-hmm.
like, I know if you migrate too many times and don't just keep using your master,
Right.
you get in trouble.
Well, yeah, you can have degradation for sure. It's
Degradation, that's the word I was looking for.
Yeah.
it's one of those things where you definitely want to be proactive. Let me say it that way. You want to be making sure that the content that you have that's in your course is the most accurate and the best and the most up to date. So in the event that you get kicked back, right, something like this, where you can see that it's basically linking to another course, there's information that it's pinging back to come back. What you would want to do at that point is those would be links that I would update, right, to either have a direct link to that specific content, or you're using links that are internal to the course.
So some ways to circumvent that, if you're in a page, you'll see on the right side, there's the embed a link to this page. That keeps it internal. But if I copy the URL and I put that into the page, specifically talking about a Canvas course,
Right.
that would more likely come back. Like you can see, one of the support resources is referencing a different course.
Yes.
Anytime I'm building a course and I want to link to and assign for something else in that course, it's always better to use that menu.
That panel,
Correct.
yes.
And click on that and let it do it automatically
Yeah.
rather than
Yes.
Copying the
highlight
URL.
it and search
Mhm.
for it.
Yes, and to illustrate that point, I had a professor that a few weeks ago, probably 3 now, had come to me and said, my students go to this page, but when they click on it, it takes them to a previous course that is done. But it should be this course. Why is that happening? And that was my statement was, well, the links, the way that you're using them, this link corresponds to the URL of a old course. What you want to do is you want to have the link that's built into this specific module, because that module won't change from course to course. The URL will change, but if it links internally to that specific module, that path doesn't change. Right? And so after we kind of figured out and worked through a few of those, we were able to find, there was a number of them in different pages. And it was just whoever had built that or whoever had added that did what we all do. We go and we click on the URL and we copy that because that's the direct path to that information, not thinking that when I go to my next course, that information is now going to be invalid because A, the student can't access it because they're not registered for that course, and that is all shut and it's closed and all of that. So, and again, these videos, these are things here too. So again, if I wanted to click on this lesson 17 and go in, right, I know that the link to this, the link that they're talking about is down here, right? So that I can go through now and figure out, all right, well, where is my Where's my, what, is there a video that isn't working? Because Khan Academy, again, they update things, right? So here it is. So here's the video that was there, which now has been moved. And so that's why it's getting this oops redirect page that, hey, we can't find it, but I love this. Hey, you can give us some money. We can't find this video, but hey, that's awesome. Sorry, I didn't mean to throw that up there, but that's what that does. So that tells you that the link that you had there is necessarily no longer working or something's wrong with it. And it's a great, like I said, it's a great piece to have. It's a great piece to be able to go back and say, oh, maybe this is resource that I haven't used or really isn't necessary. So do I need to have it in my class, or I need to update this to make sure this is current? How do I want this to work? What do I need to do? All of these things. So again, as you can see, so since my course ended in October, I have a dozen, 14 different links. Some of them that are internal, but most of them that are external with Khan Academy that I have to go and fix now for the next time this course gets taught. Which brings me to this really, really great checklist that we created. I sent it out to, I know, right? That was a shameless plug for what we've been working on. So I sent it out to everybody, all the faculty and everybody in an email. So your document's going to look like this. So it has this master shell walkthrough at the beginning. So it just going to highlight what it is that Shanae talked about. We put some screenshots in there so that, again, you have that step-by-step so you can walk through all of those pieces so it makes sense. And all of that you'll be able to understand all of that. And then we have this really cool checklist. And so what this is we put together the things that we really felt were necessary as you're ending your course, so that when you go to either upload it to the master or you're going to use it again for that next time, that it's really set up well so that you don't have to do a lot of prep work on there. It's really just to go in, take a look, see what's going on, and then from there, being able to just publish and deploy, and you're good to go. So it's really very simple. The first one is all about the files pages that are in your Canvas course. That, however that works, can become this really nasty hodgepodge of just stuff, especially if you have adopted a course, right? Especially if you have come into a course that wasn't yours and somebody else taught it, or it's the 5th or 6th time that's been taught by 5 or 6 different professors, right? It could just be this menagerie of stuff, right, that you don't even know what half of it is. The rule of thumb when we're talking about file management is, in the event that you haven't used it, you don't need it, it's not relevant to what it is that you're doing, chances are really good that that can just go away. I was talking with Julie before we started this session. Another thing you can do is you can, if you want to make sure in the event that you don't know if you need it, right? You can actually export your class as a zip file, and it will export all of the content of that course, right? So all the files, all of that information, it'll export all of that into a zip file, which then you could at a later time either upload to a master and just have those files. You could also import that into a sandbox if you wanted to, right? So you would have that content just in the event that you needed something that you didn't know was there.
I'm thinking that the files in the zip file would not be necessarily recognizable to just open on their own.
Correct. They would have to be uploaded. It's all Canvas related. So at that point, you're downloading basically a Canvas zip file that has those Canvas designators. So if we move learning management systems, it would probably transfer, but you wouldn't just be able to go into that zip file and open it up. It's only probably read file formats by those. But again, something right, something that you can do.
So look at those files.
Yes, ma'am.
Is it bad practice at the end of a course to say, okay, I've tweaked it, I've got it like I want it because I went through this course and I made those changes the whole semester. I want to make this my new master.
Mhm.
Is that bad practice?
No.
To say, okay, so what do you do then? Do you import or export it?
That's great. We did actually.
You guys are the only ones that can make a master.
So we can, or an org admin can make masters. or create masters. You can take your master, and Sinead talked about this at the beginning. You can take your master and reset it, which basically clears all of the content out. And then you can copy that course that you were just working in, that you have tweaks and edits and things that you've done, and transfer that into your master, which now then becomes the new master.
And that's the document Jesse
Yes.
was mentioning that he sent out, along with that checklist, is how to do that, how
But we're
to.
just saying, why bother with that if you can just rename the one you have as master and carry on? Is that what you're
Can
saying?
you do that?
You can't rename a live course.
But once it's dead, once it's done.
If it's if a course is a master, it can be renamed. If it is a live course,
It can't.
can't.
And if it's
Because
been a live course, it can't.
So if it's
Those-
a live course and we want to make a master.
You have to copy it.
We
Well-
have to empty out the original master and import that live course into my master.
Right.
if that's the
To
master
make it a
content.
master.
Yes, ma'am.
But if you're wanting to keep any of the content from the first iteration of master, I would think you would do a zip file.
Right.
Or they can also just, I was just talking
Rename
about
the
that,
maps,
rename
the
master.
original master to denote. So what Julie wanted to do was, I like this iteration, the current one, but I want to maintain the one from 15-16. So she was asking if we could create a separate master that had the academic year listed. And we can do that as well.
I want to draw something, but I don't have a marker. Darn it.
How would the
Thank you. I appreciate that.
This kind of thing.
They do. They seriously do.
There's
Interrupted
probably-
Jason Caldwell's class twice now.
I was gonna say there probably is one out there. It's fine. Crystal, we're good. Seriously, it's totally fine. I will reiterate. I'll use another analogy. So in your course, right? So we're talking about files. If you come in and you click on obviously the files page for that particular course, you'll see again all of these files, right? Now you'll notice over here that what I have done is I have created a file called old files. Because when I took over this course, it had been taught a number of times previously, and there were files that were associated that I had no idea what they were. I didn't know if I would need them. I didn't necessarily know what they were. And so right away, what I did is I just took all of those files and dumped them into an old file designator. That way they still lived in the files page in the course, but I didn't necessarily have to see them unless I knew that I needed them. Right? Knowing also that I can always go back and delete that file folder out with all that information if I don't need anything in there. Right? I have a syllabus files, which allows me the ability to have anything that's related to the syllabus. You could also put all of your different versions of a syllabus if you had or you wanted to, right? You were keeping a log that way in there, anything like that. Again, I put these course images are things that I've uploaded either that are for specific courses. This one is my little GIF that I use for my course tile picture. But again, this could be images that you use, right, for anything that is in there. The file structure in here is whatever it is that helps you to keep it organized. That's the main point I want to make, is that it should be structured in a way that makes sense to you. This is your course, right? And you want to keep it that way. So that's something, again, you want to make sure that at least there needs to be some sort of organizational system there to where your files make sense to where they are, right? And if there's information that's in there that you don't need, get rid of it, right? If you have 15 iterations, right? If you have 15 files, bless you, that are the same name, but just like a different iteration number, and all the information in those 15 files are the same, you can delete 14 of them, right? You're totally capable. You have my permission at that point, right? Delete whatever it is that you need to delete. Please go right ahead and do that. So that would be my first thing, is making sure that that structure looks and functions the way that it is that you want it to function. Okay. Bye, Julie. We'll see you later.
I
Again,
noticed that, just an aside, the gift there, the guy,
mhm.
1.5 megs. Is there any kind of file size quota that we
50,
can't go over?
wait, 50?
Yes,
Person
50 per person,
and 500 per course.
500 per course.
15 megs per,
Per person. So you personally, right? So if I went to Sinead's account and clicked on files under her account,
Okay.
that's her personal file storage as well. So it gets muddy in a way because it kind of overlaps, right? Your personal files come into your course files as well, and vice versa. So it kind of works, it overlaps in a way. But like I said, so this is something that, again, if you wanted to have just a flat image file for your course, you could do that. I just had fun and wanted to make something that was interesting. But right, so there is a limited amount of space, a finite amount of space that you can have for files. That's why we tell professors not to have students upload like video files to your course, but to link to them, right? To upload to YouTube. We use YouTube space instead of our space because you'll kill your course because it'll be too full. And at that point, nothing works because students can't upload things, they can't do this. So that's why when we talk about file submissions, we talk about flat files, which are your images, your documents, right? Links to videos, different things like that. You can upload those and they work just fine. You can still go out and grade them and do all those things. You just don't have the massive storage capacity that you would maybe in another place. But again, there's too much.
How did you create the files on the left?
You
Okay.
see the
The
plus
blue
full.
files?
So right here,
Yes.
so in your file, I'll call it your file box. In your files page, if you want to make a folder, you just come over here and click this little gray plus button that says add a folder. And so now I can name anything. Yep. So this one would be within images. However, so if I come over here to the actual Sandbox course, I could come in here and create a folder, and I could call it anything I wanted to, right? So now I have a test folder, okay? Which if I scroll up, it also appears in my tree as well, right?
I
And
saw it
so,
on the right-hand side, and I thought, well, I don't want it on the right-hand side. I didn't look on the left.
right. So, and again, this is just your tree. So if you want it to appear on that second tier, right? So we're branching down a little bit. You just go to the root of that class and then create your folder. It'll appear over here. And so you now can transfer files in two different places. So if I click on this old files file folder, right? So see, there's two pictures in there, right? One of Dr. French and one of Dr. Worth, both who have taught this course. So from here, I can transfer these to any of these other folders by just grabbing them and dragging them, or coming over here to this little wheel and clicking move. Okay?
Yeah.
So it's very simple that direction for you to then start to manage files wherever you want them to go. Okay, so coming back to the checklist, right? So your order and organization was number one, making sure that they're up to date, right? You don't want something that's, you want a syllabus file that's years old. That doesn't help anybody. You want to make sure that they're necessary and pertinent to the course. And then you want to make sure, again, like I talked about, there's some type of organizational structure, folders, something that's in there that makes sense to you. The next place that you want to go is you want to go to the assignments. Okay, and notice I didn't go to modules, right? Because I want to go to assignments. Because the gradebook is linked to this place, and this is where all of your groupings are for your assignments that are connected to the gradebook. So it makes sense that if you want to update your assignments, that you come to the actual assignment page, right? You can update them in modules if you want to, but if you want to do any type of organizational moving, any type of weighting of grades, right? Anything that's like that, all of that information happens here. So that's why this is really, really important. This is where you come in if you wanted to change a group name, move assignments around, rename them, fix them, anything like that, you would do that here, right? So as you can see, all of like the devotions are all grouped together, right? In one group. All of these assignments here are grouped together. All the quizzes and tests are grouped together. Any of the reflections, right, are all grouped together in the same vein.
And this is also a place where you'll see at the bottom, and you could see if you've imported pieces of
Yep.
content or of assignments. So I've imported a quiz or an assignment. There will be a category called imported assignments.
Yes.
If I've got them divvied up more than likely, I want that to fall in one of my assignment categories, so essays, and not in this category that's called imported assignments.
Right. So again, you just want to make sure that that's all up to date, right? That anything that you maybe corrections or changes, anything that you've noticed, if an assignment didn't go the way you wanted to and you wanted to fix it, that would be, again, the place in which I would direct you to make those changes. So, and then again, so course pages will be the next place that will go. So we'll click on the pages tab over in the navigation to make sure that we're here, right? So again, it takes you obviously right to the home page. You click on the view all pages at that point, and now this will show you all of your pages that you have listed in your course. So again, just making sure that they're all up to date, they're all current. There isn't something that's floating around in here, right? That A isn't published or is just something that you don't necessarily need and or want.
And part of the reason we want you to look specifically at each of these tabs is sometimes when we're using modules, which is what we encourage professors to use for structure purposes, sometimes people think that removing it from a module removes it from the course, but it doesn't.
It doesn't.
Just takes it out of that module space. And so I may have thought that I deleted that page when I removed it from the module, but in actuality, it lives on in the pages.
Right. So
Modules
as you
is
can
just
see,
a place to access it.
right, as you can see here, the bottom, very last bottom two. Now, obviously it says December 1st and December 1st. That's because that's the day it was created and imported. But if you were to go to my course, there would be different dates that would live with these because these two pages are old, right? They're not published. So these are old home pages, but you won't see that
In your module.
in my modules or in the current structure. You have to go 2 pages to see that. So it will show you every page that is in your course, where the modules, like Shanae said, doesn't always show you, won't show you, especially if you've removed that.
And that would be same with assignments. If an assignment is unpublished and hasn't been part of a module in a while, that's why we also encourage you to look at that assignments button to just make sure, oh yeah, I thought I deleted it when I removed it from that module. Well, it's still, the module is just kind of a link. I mean, it organizes
It's like a
the
folder.
information, but it doesn't hold the information.
Exactly. The last one is quizzes. So again, quizzes is doing the exact same thing. Quizzes is where all of your tests and quizzes, your assessment pieces are going to live. And this is that same thing, right? So coming in, making sure that all of them are grouped accordingly, right? Where you want them to be grouped in, that they're all relevant, they're current, they're up to date. Anything that needed to be changed or removed, right, is removed at some point in time. Oh yeah, did I skip over that? I did skip over that. Thank you. And discussions. That's right. So discussions in the next one. I would have totally just left it and not even paid attention. I'm like, hey, discussions.
So I have quizzes, when I look at assignments, I have quizzes and quizzes. But then if I click on the left-hand side where it says quizzes, it says you have no quizzes. So I need to get the quizzes from assignments and put them into,
We'll look at that.
okay.
Yeah, we'll see what that one
sounds
is.
specific.
That's interesting.
Often quizzes will appear in the assignments button or under assignments. If it's a graded assignment, often discussions that are graded, quizzes that are graded, and then just any other kind of assignments will appear under that assignments button. But if it's not graded, it wouldn't necessarily appear there. And discussions is a place that sometimes people forget as well, just because there may have been a discussion that was relevant to one class that is no longer relevant, that I removed from a module that I didn't remove from the course.
Exactly.
Announcements are one quirky thing that will also come over. So I don't know if you have announcements.
I do.
So you'll want to more than likely delete those. or copy out the content. There's not really a good way to edit it and get a new date to appear on it. But that's one of those things that does come over
Yes,
that you may not realize or intend for it to come over.
right.
Like,
And your
class
students will let you know.
canceled.
Yeah, exactly. People who are like, what is that? That doesn't even make any sense. Especially when we're talking about an online class and I was talking about face-to-face stuff. Because that was specific to that specific group of students for that specific class.
Mhm. And then I think the end
Was modules.
that. Okay.
Yep. So the last place to look is, again, just modules. So going through, making sure that, again, all the modules are created where you want them. They say what you want. If there's any prerequisites, like you have to complete this week, before this week, all of that stuff is still ready and accessible and set up and works correctly. All of the content that is in each, if you have them set up by weeks, whatever is supposed to be in there is in there, right? Discussions, assignments, quizzes, whatever that is. All of that information is ready to go. If you need to move something around, move it around, right? Create a different structure, try something different out, whatever it is that you're wanting to do. So again, it's really about organization. That's really, I think, the key for this is that if you have the ability to end a course well, have it organized, it's so much easier when you come back to it, especially like after a semester is over, or let's say you haven't taught a course, you teach it once a year or once every other year, right? You want that to be as relevant and current when it's done. That way, when you come back to it the next time, if it is a substantial amount of time, that you don't have to think back and go, well, what was that? Or I feel like I needed to do something, but I don't remember what it is that I did. I mean, we're all very busy, and so we'll get lost in that shuffle.
Mhm.
So, and then again, coming back to that link validator, that's another thing too. This is another great resource to come back to double check the links and things like that are in your specific course. So when you put it away, you can know that it's good. It's also a good thing to run before you publish, right? So, and you can run this as many times as you want. There's no quota that says, well, you can only do it once. You could run it once a week if you wanted to. I mean, there's no harm in that. But again, this is a great way to just test everything that's linked to something in your course. And as you can see, I have 14 of them that I have to go and figure out and fix, which is fine. I would rather know this now, right, than have to come back to it later, right? Than have to come back to it later. And some of them I knew about already, but again, it's nice to know now that there's more than was there before. So that's our checklist.
And you're gonna the one bonus.
Oh, here's our bonus.
Material.
That's right. Here's
Just
the bonus.
because you came.
Just because you came today. So
Delete something.
let's go delete something.
Not modules. And quizzes.
You want to delete a quiz? Okay. So if you accidentally, okay, well, I'm going to use the word accidentally, delete something. You're in here and you feel like it's not relevant and you accidentally hit delete, and you accept the fact that you were like, yep, that's what I want to delete. And you realize, oh no, I just deleted that. But wait, that wasn't the right one. I thought I was looking at something else. The best way to figure out what to go back, okay, is this really great thing. So if you go to your homepage, which will basically give you your course name with your course number, you hit the / button and you type in the word undelete. Okay, what this does is it brings up this handy dandy little page. This is anything that's been deleted, right, in the history of this particular course will show up here. Now, there is a couple of caveats to that. One is that sometimes there are things that you will delete that are permanently deleted and they don't reappear. They don't come back. Oh, thank you so much. And that's a Canvas thing, right? So there might be a file, right, or something else like that when you delete it, it's permanently deleted. You can't come back and undelete that. Also, like if you reset your course, that's a permanent thing, right? You can't go back and click on it and say, hey, undelete, and that's not gonna work. But this is really nice. So here's my thing, right? So again, you can see when it was created, you can see that it was in two places, right? It was in quizzes and it was over here where there was this assignment. So you'll see that it was in those two places. And so if you come in here and you click restore, yep, I would like to restore that. Okay, and we come back in. So there's my quiz. So that's a nice feature in the event that something gets deleted and you realize, oh, I probably shouldn't have deleted that, right? It's a great feature to have the ability to come back and say, oh, I can fix that. And you don't have to necessarily feel like in a fright. So that's undelete. It's pretty fun. It's really cool. It's a little hidden gem that at some point in time they may decide to make it an actual feature, but for right now it's just a little hidden thing that you actually have to manually go to.
That the two of us know.
Well, we actually had a professor who,
Faculty.
yeah, I think sometimes they don't want undelete to become incredibly well known in that people start to get careless or more careless when they're like,
Right.
oh, well, if something happens, I'll restore it. Where with that URL, Canvas says you may not get everything back.
Yep.
It will do our best to pull back what was deleted. We actually had a professor who unintentionally deleted a paper from his course this week that was graded and had comments and is in an active course, and he didn't.
It was an accident.
He didn't realize, and
Yeah.
then he was frantic because he's like, I had all those notes and thankfully we were able to undelete it, and it did restore everything. But
Besides, it makes you guys look
Hey, I'll take that. I will take that.
But yep. And then you had a specific course question, so I think that's all we have.
That is
for-
that. So yeah, that's all that we have. We do. We send out the link to you so that you have this recording to kind of revisit if you need to, and we'll add the actual screenshots and things like that into it, so it makes it a little more understandable and manageable. Not really sure why it's not screen sharing, but it's probably because I'm using this computer, which doesn't instead of my physical computer. I'll learn. And then it also has the end of course checklist as well, so you can go and use that if you want to, or just have it for reference. So it just keeps things fresh.
And then tomorrow.
Yes, and tomorrow, we have a wonderful opportunity. Well, we created this. Think of it like a gathering, right? So there's no agenda, there's no specific training or anything else like that that's going on. It's just a 3-hour block from 1 to 4 tomorrow in this room, where we're going to come and sit. We can have a conversation. We can talk about whatever it is that you want to talk about. If there's something that's bothering you, if there's something that you have that's specific to a course that you have a question on, if it has nothing to do with Canvas at all and you just want to chat, we're going to be here, right? So we're going to come. We're going to sit. We reserve this room. There's a session tomorrow. There's one next week, and there's one, I believe it's the following week as well. So think of it.
Next Friday,
and
then the following finals week
Tuesday. Yeah. So just like a detox, right? Sometimes we just need a place to where we're just going to come and sit and laugh and carry on. We may or may not have treats. We may or may not watch a Christmas movie. I don't really know what we're going to do, but it's just a time, right? To be able to come.
Need moral support while you're grading. If
Yes.
You want to bring, some people like lots of people around while they're grading, and it doesn't feel so lonely or drudgery. Yes. That's an option. So.
Yeah, and we thought Fridays because most people Friday afternoon they're done with whatever it is they're doing. Their classes are done. They don't have an afternoon class, so they're just going to kind of like cut out or whatever. It's an opportunity for us to just kind of all get together and have a spot to not have an agenda, but a place to sit and just do whatever.
So spread that, because I know there are 2 of you.
Yeah. Just the others you can interact with.
So what was